Okay, so today is our third day on one-step inequalities, and we are actually going to take a look on something a little bit different when it comes to inequalities. It's not always going to stay written the way it is from start to finish. And you'll understand it a little bit better once we start working through it. So let's jump right in. So why do we need to flip the inequality sign? So sometimes you'll start out with your problem saying less than, and once you work your way through, you'll end up with the sign saying greater than. And we're going to work through some problems for you to kind of get a feel for what I mean by that. So let's go ahead and look at our first inequality. 1 is less than 4. So we know that 1 is less than 4 is very much true. So I'm going to go ahead and mark it as true. So now, if I were to add 3 to both sides, my inequality would then be, well, 1 plus 3 is 4 is less than, and 4 plus 3 is 7. So 4 is less than 7. That is still true. So I'm going to go ahead and put true. So I noticed that adding to both sides isn't really making a difference with my inequality. Okay, so let's try the next one. -4 is less than 6. Well, -4 is less than 6, so I'm going to go ahead and mark true. It says subtract 3 from both sides. Well, if I subtract 3 from both sides, -4 minus 3 is going to give me -7. And 6 minus 3 is going to give me, well, it'll give me 3. And I know that -7 is still less than 3. So that would still be true. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the next one. It says -1 is less than 5. Well, I know that -1 is less than 5. So I'm going to mark that as true. Now it says multiply both sides by 2. Okay, so if I do -1 times 2, it's going to give me -2 is less than, and then 5 times 5 times 2 is going to give me 10. So -2 is still less than 10. So that's true. So right here, I'm noticing that if I add to both sides, nothing changes. If I subtract to both sides, I don't notice any changes. And if I multiply to both sides, right now I'm not seeing any changes. So let's keep going. -3 is less than 3. Well, -3 is less than 3. That is true. Here it says multiply both sides by -2. Okay, so apparently there's a difference. So I noticed that multiplying by +2 didn't make a difference, but maybe multiplying by -2 will. So let's see. -3 times -2 gives me +6. So that's 6 is less than, and then 3 times -2 would give me -6. So 6 is less than -6. Well, I know that that's definitely not true. So I'm going to go ahead and put false. So apparently, if I add to both sides, nothing changes. If I subtract to both sides, nothing changes. If I multiply by a positive number, nothing changes. But if I multiply by a negative number, I'm noticing that there is a difference. So let's go ahead and look at division now. Well, I know that 2 is less than 10. Oops, I was supposed to put true or false in there. And that is true. Now, if I divide both sides by positive 2, I know that negative 2 divided by 2 is negative 1. So negative 1. And 10 divided by positive 2 is 5. So negative 1 is less than 5. That's still true. Okay, so dividing by a positive number doesn't make a difference. Let's take a look at dividing by a negative number. Well, 2 is less than 8. But if I divide 2 by negative 2, that changes it to negative 1. And if I divide 8 by negative 2, well, that changes it to negative 4. And I know that negative 1 is not less than negative 4. So that one is false. So let's go ahead and check out these questions at the bottom. So it says, use your work from the table above to answer the following questions. Well, which specific actions cause the first inequality to become a false inequality? Well, I notice that multiplying and dividing by negative numbers made it false. Now, question number 2. Without changing the action, what could be done to the new inequality to make it true? Well, think about it for a second. What could I do to that inequality to make both of those false statements true? If you thought switching the sign, you would be right. If I were to switch the signs, that would make both of those inequalities now true. So I want you to take a second to go ahead and summarize what you learned on this slide. Okay, so overall, we learned that if I add or subtract to both sides of the inequality, my statement is still going to stay true. If I multiply or divide by a positive number, my statement will stay true. But if I multiply or divide both sides by a negative number, then my inequality will be false. The only way to make sure that I can keep my inequality true is if I flip my sign. So I hope that this was helpful, and I will see you tomorrow.